Welcome back to Music Theory Logic. A really fun thing to do when you're building a bass line, especially if it's a simple one, is build a sound from scratch. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do using SERUM from X4 Records. Let's go ahead into the Logic session. So I've done a lot of videos on SERUM. This is a sound that if you have this plugin and you're not super well versed in sound design, is a really simple one to wrap your brain around. We're going to build a pretty simple bass sound with a little bit of movement, and I'm going to play you a sample of the bass that we're going to hear. I'll play the full track up to where the bass drops. Cool, so we're going to attempt to make that bass line. Might be a little bit different because I'm not going to cheat at all. So here is the actual MIDI notes. It is literally just what we would call the root note of the chord progression. So in other words, the lowest note of each chord is happening here. The rhythm is exactly the same as the other chord layers in this track. Anytime you do a bass line that is this simple, this is where you can really benefit from just a little bit of movement in the sound to add more interest. So I'm going to try to keep this really quick and simple for you. So let's open up SERUM. Here's a default layer. Perhaps be warned, it's not going to sound too great from the beginning. Here's what it sounds like default. Solo that out. So the first thing we're going to do is on oscillator A, we're going to put analog BD sine. I think that's analog bass drum sine. We're going to add the same exact oscillator. Now you could pick some different kinds of oscillators. The great thing about this, the sine BD, is that it's just a really smooth sound, and for low end it works really well, especially if you're just going for like a sub. So I'm going to use the noise oscillator here to create a kick transient. I'll use kick 28. I'm going to make it a one shot. I will turn the pitch down a little bit. So now we're at this point. All right, but we need the movement. So LFO1, we're going to turn it to envelope mode. You can shape it however you see fit. We're going to make it so that when it's at the top, the level here, the volume of these oscillators is at the top there. And then when it goes to the bottom, it drops all the way down. I'll turn this to a half note. Again, how you shape this is going to be how that sound changes. Now it's this. All right, now LFO2 is where we're going to start to add some more movement to the sound. I'll choose bend plus. We can do this by ear. All right, now we have some movement. We can do some simple other movement by choosing our mix for hyper dimension expander. Add a little distortion on it. Definitely could do some compression, although I don't think I did this on the original sound. All right, let's hear it in context. Cool. pretty simple. From there, you could do all sorts of cool things with the sound design. You could, for instance, add a third LFO. This is kind of a fun technique. You could put it on reverb. You want to make it so that you basically don't hear reverb very much. Another thing we could do is go back to LFO 2, and we could use that to change the actual, or let's use LFO 1. We could start to actually change the frequencies that we're hearing. So for instance, we could have the low end on the beginning and then that decay as well. So it's basically a low cut is happening over this half note. You notice that really cleans up the bass. I could do it a little bit more subtly, and it makes that first note have noticeably more low end. Which just changes the sound. Now, at any point, you could always bypass the second LFO and you have a simpler sub. A great thing to do is to bounce audio in place, and you can get simpler or different sounds. When you're sound designing, that's always helpful. If you get a sound that you really like, convert it to audio so that even if you change the synth parameters, you still have the audio that you like, and then use that audio sampling. It's easier on your computer than running live SERUM patches anyway. So I hope you found that helpful. If you found that helpful, you would help me out a lot by subscribing to the channel. Once again, my name is Andrew. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Have fun building sounds. It's a really cool feeling when you know that the instrument that you're using, you actually built, and so it's unique to your own song or your own creation. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks again for hanging out, and I will see you next time. Cheers.